What's important to you? My mission is to ask as many people as possible this question, because I believe once you know what's important, you can design and build a life of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. My name is James Dean. I'm a life coach, and I hope this podcast inspires you to uncover what's important to you. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at James Dean Coaching, or connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also learn how I can help you understand what's important at jamesdeancoaching.com. Today's guest is a qualified life, career and business coach with the Irish Life Coach Institute since 2007. He is a Master NLP practitioner, qualified trainer, member of the Professional Speaking Association of Ireland and radio presenter with Limerick City Community Radio. He helps professionals, C-suites, managers, business owners, solopreneurs and entrepreneurs raise their profile in order to have a life while making a living. He also works as a business coach for business owners and delivers workshops in companies and organizations on resilience and related topics. As a hobby, he has run 124 full and ultra marathons and is a member of the 100 Marathon Club Ireland. Today, we find out what's important to Patrick Mercie. Hi, Patrick. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, James, how are you?
I'm really good. Delighted to be speaking to you.
Yeah, my pleasure, absolutely. Why not? We spoke together on an event once, so yeah.
We did indeed.
Well.
Yeah, and it's because of what's happened, we know it's been a couple of years, but now things hopefully are starting to come back together and we can all start to chat and meet again in person very soon. Mm-hmm. So to kick straight off into the conversation, first question I want to ask you, Patrick, is what's important to you?
For people who would look into my office, they would see that behind me there is a plaque that has been there for over 10 years. And on that plaque it says, what can I do today to make this world a better, more intentional place to be for others? So in one sentence, that is my entire business plan. That's what drives what I do. That's my why. What can I do today to make this world a better, more intentional place to be for others? So that's what's important to me.
Yeah. And where did that sort of come from then? Where did that whole sort of intention come from for you?
Well, that evolved, James, as it does with most people. When I arrived in Ireland in 1994, I'm originally from Brussels in Belgium. And I met an Irish lady in Brussels and I followed over and I started a life here in 94. And that's about, how many? 2 or 3 recessions ago, I can't remember. It's a while back.
Yeah.
It was actually the start of a kind of a dip in the economy here in Ireland. So my first job was actually at a forecourt filling cards with petrol, right? The last job I had in Belgium was managing a bar for someone for 5 years. But so I worked my way into the corporate world here. First of all, because I speak about 4 languages, I'm learning a 5th now, was like call centers, because call centers were the upcoming thing at the time in the 90s. And because of my strength in languages and I had management skills, I got into management positions in a call center with AST Computer, which at the time were one of the largest computer manufacturers in the world. Right. They used to sponsor Aston Villa for people at the time and all that. Like, so anyway, they're a big company. They were bought out by Samsung. I stayed with Samsung for a couple of years. I was then headhunted by Cable and Wireless to set up a division of Assure and Provide. Anyway, I had a corporate career. Yeah. And it all sounds great and it all sounds fun and the pay is good and you have loads of responsibilities and you're living the life variety. But you also, in long and in short, end up with a burnout. You end up with traveling way too much. You end up by being entertained. We end up weighing 16 stone, smoking 30 cigarettes a day, and you have a burnout. So that happens, and it doesn't happen to everyone. But my position was relatively high up, so I was reporting directly to the European VP.
Right.
So, you know, like, so it's, you know, this kind of like I had Ryanair as clients, and when their website gets down, you get like 3 minutes to fix it yesterday, and, you know, that kind of crap. So, yeah. So it's all good. It seems like good fun that when you go to Shannon Airport, Sinead from Aer Lingus says, Patrick, where are you flying to today? It sounds fun, but it isn't.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of a burnout that happened, etc. Anyway, that was with Cable and Wireless. I asked for redundancy. They refused. I asked a second time. They refused. And then the EMEA president flew over from Barbados to Shannon to convince me to stay. I took him to Dirty Nelly's. This is a true story. We went play around the golf, took him to Dirty Nelly's in Bunratty, and over a couple of points, he accepted my redundancy offer, right?
Right.
That was it. So I left and went into retail.
Okay.
I met a company you probably remember, Extravision. Remember that?
Yeah.
So I managed a store for Extravision. I thought that's really easy, right? From 20 million, 50 million deals to like a local shop. Yeah. One of many. At the time, Extravision had actually more stores than Tesco in Ireland.
Yes.
There was more Extravisions than there were Tesco. Right? So there was a big packing company with loads of packing units and all that. So I managed that. And then it was one day in one of those Extravisions, I was standing behind the counter and I got blurred vision, chest pains, right? Left arm, the whole lot. It was like feeling like a heart attack, but I'm a bloke. So with all due respect to you, James, we're not always the cleverest human beings. I walked out of the front door of the shop and walked to the GP, which was only a mile down the road.
Yes.
So walked into the GP's office, described what was happening to the receptionist. She ran into the doctor. He kicked out the patient, got me in. It was only a severe stress attack.
Right.
Again, right? And he said to me at the time, I said, you won't make 50. And I was very brute. I'm not used to like really direct responses by people in Ireland that way, right? It was like as if he had taken a detour and had spent a holiday in Holland and learned how to be really direct, because he said, you're not going to make 50.
Right.
And I took that advice on board, so much so that I asked if I could go back to the shop. And he went, no. And he wrote me a note for a week off enforced, right? And then I think he even rang head office, because they rang me saying, I heard you're on a week.
Yeah, geez.
I was a training manager of Extravision, and he was an ex-army guy, and we had connected at management meetings because I spent a tour of duty in the Belgian army in 88, 89 in a tank unit, in a combat unit in tank regiment. And you know, when your blokes talk about the army, you know, you connect. So he heard I was up for a week, and he sent me a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You know the book? Yeah, by Stephen Covey.
Yep.
And I read that. And what connected with me the most was that there was talk about coaching. You know, like I understood coaching because I had been good at athletics, good at soccer, so I understood coaching. So what's this coaching they talk of? And I looked it up, and it was about life and business coaching. That's what they were talking about. And I said, oh, what's that? That's interesting. I have a week off. Let's look into this. And I came across the Irish Life Coach Institute and a gentleman who I still know to this day, Adrian Mitchell. And I did interviews at the time because it was that popular, the course was. So I enrolled in a life and business coaching course in 2006. So that's just over 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And I got my diploma in May 2007, 15 years ago this month. And I handed in my notice. So this is how this evolved to me becoming a coach and self-employment, if you want to. So I started as a coach 15 years ago.
Wow. And it's what you're just saying there is really interesting in the sense of like the obviously the journey that you had to take before you got to sort of into the sort of coaching world, and a lot of it's coming at me because there's so many things mirror in sense of my experience as well, just so maybe 10, 15 years later. It's quite an interesting thing. But so what would you say then, before we get into the coaching piece in the sense of that, what you've done in those last 15 years, because you managed to walk away from, say, the cable and wireless, and then you went into Extravision. What was the sort of the thought process when you decided, you know what, I'm done with sort of the employee side of stuff or working for someone, and you think, I'm going to do this for myself? What was the sort of moment, or was there a moment, or was there sort of like, I'm just going to go for this?
No, this had been rumbling for years.
Okay.
I was diagnosed when I was younger. I was sitting in class and I could never shut up, right?
Yeah.
So I got checked out because like this, he's very disruptive. And my dad was a very direct man, and he used to go like, well, if you can't keep him in check, that's your problem. You're the teacher, right? But anyway, so I got checked out, and the reason I was doing it was I got bored.
Yeah.
For two reasons. One, because when I got diagnosed with high IQ. And two, I'm not academic as such.
Yeah. So
I'm more like a performer. I want to be on stage. I'm an extrovert. So like, those things, I didn't know that. Like, so I always got bored and like these things. So so when you become aware of that, then there's the sort of a diagnosis. So there was always a process when I was going through corporate of me coming up with ideas, right?
Yeah.
I always was the guy, I have an idea here, we can do this. But guys who are sitting higher up on the management levels don't like people who come up with ideas all the time. I know they should, but they don't necessarily, right?
Yeah.
Because like, you're showing them up and you're like, especially at meetings and whatever, like, so there was always a clash. Either they didn't get implemented or didn't get listened to. And I don't really deal well with people telling me what to do or telling me not to do stuff or whatever. I never have, right? That's a side effect of being clever. I don't know, but like when people tell me like, you know what you need to do this, I go like, I shut off. Right?
Yeah.
Normally. So that always led to clashes wherever I worked. Right? It was always clashes in so far that I didn't actually reach my full potential, if you want to call it that, because you were always stopped by people trying to hold you down.
Yeah. So
that's what happened there. I can't really blame anyone but myself now that I'm self-employed.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's absolutely, because I suppose it's interesting because they say like one of the things I say I wasn't as long in a sense of a corporate environment, but for me was as soon as I left university, the sort of obviously had part-time jobs all through school and college and stuff. But if you want to call it when people are in that sort of early 20s and they get their first real job, if quote unquote, and took the job because I needed a job. It wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. I needed any sort of job, got the job within the banking industry, temporary contract, stayed there for 16 years. And similar to yourself, always had this sort of wanting to do something different, wanting to do something for myself. And I think I probably didn't suit that environment, not in the same way, in the sense of I was getting too above, but I found it hard to play the game in some ways, if that makes sense, within the corporate environment. I probably I would speak my mind maybe too much, maybe for people to, I was well liked and people got on, but maybe I wouldn't know when to just let things go. And so when I could see when I felt, in my opinion, it was the wrong thing. So that, as you say, gets you a certain point and then you don't go any further, don't you? But one of the things that what I wanted to try and what I wanted to get now was that sort of in charge of your own destiny, if you want to call it, or live and die by your own decisions type thing, that sort of wanting to give it a go. Is that what kind of in the end made you want to do it? It's like, well, I just want to be me.
Well, it was actually the course. Okay. I remember the first Saturday of the course with the Irish Life Coach Institute. The first Saturday, the first day of the first module, I knew this was it.
Okay.
I just had this instinct, but probably one of the, not the first time, but one of the more important times in my life that you have an instinct and you listen to it.
Yeah.
You actually go like, yeah, no, I know this is it, right? This is what I'm going to do. Right? And I knew from that moment, this is what I was going to do. I didn't know what it involved, what was involved. I didn't know how to, I didn't know, but like actually the 15 years in itself have been a journey as well. But I knew from that moment, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well, because that sort of, one of the first times listening to that sort of instinct, because I think sometimes from my experience as well, when working within the corporate environment, is maybe that instinct or thinking of that instinct or that gut isn't maybe as trusted or used as much as maybe it could be. So, you know, as you say, maybe it was one of the first times because you were like, well, actually, I'm just gonna, you didn't know the outcome, but you just kind of went with it in some ways.
Yes. And now I know that what actually was the thing in corporate or in business or in a lot of organizations now. It is not that like I wouldn't fit in there, not that I'm going back, right? But like not that I wouldn't fit in there, but I'd work with them now. It's just to change the culture.
Yeah.
If we could change the culture, then people would happily spend 20, 30 years with a company working 9 to 5 months. Well, some people would, you know, but like it's just a cultural change rather than saying the whole corporate world needs to be disbanded or, you know, like it's
yeah, completely. Yeah. No, you say it's definitely sort of to bring it on to that sort of more way. And I think it is, but saying now that I think it is changing from, you know, before I left, it was definitely starting to shift in that way.
Okay. Yeah, the shift is slow, but yes.
It is. And I think it is, yeah. And I think it's still, I think there's not the momentum behind it as yet, unless it's, I think it's coming from people who are doing it themselves, sort of within it. And so it's kind of within the company, but maybe not from that higher level as yet. So going back to your sort of what you said, that plaque and the sense of that motto or that phrase that you have for yourself, your sort of personal sort of mission, and it's to help others as with intention. So, you know, to help. So where do help themselves? So where does your sort of, which is why I'm always interested in asking when it comes to the people who are in this sort of personal development space, coaches and that, where their clients come into it, and what's their sort of want or importance to work with other people. So where did that sort of, where does that come from, wanting to work with other people in this situation?
Yeah, but it's natural, isn't it? We're social beings.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where that comes from. Right?
Yeah.
And when you feel that, like at one stage you've been given or you've discovered within you a certain strength, or you've discovered within you a certain talent, that you can do two things with that. You can use that to enrich yourself, or you can use that to contribute. Right? I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive, but they can be. So for me, it was a choice to contribute with the talent I had, and to contribute with the knowledge I gathered, and to contribute not just to people necessarily individually, but just to contribute, and then figure out afterwards, how am I actually going to do this? Yeah. And I find that's often where people get stuck. They have an idea and then they go like, I don't know what to do with this, and then they stop.
Yeah.
Whereas if you first allow yourself to go like, okay, well, this is something, this is a gift I have, or a talent, or a strength, or whatever it is, a trait, and I want to contribute with that. And just let that be your first decision. Yeah.
That is a different sort of way of thinking, and it is a shift in of thinking, because I think that's where you say a lot of people get stuck, because they have either whether it be an idea, a goal, a dream, if whatever word they want to use, but are thinking about themselves instead of thinking about how it could impact on others. And as you say, and then get to that point of whether it be procrastination or freezing, because I think there's also an undervaluing of think, oh, will anyone actually want this? You know, who am I? The whole imposter syndrome. Did you sort of have any of those sort of what we think quite sort of traditional things, imposter syndrome, or thinking what others would think of you now that you shifted?
Yeah, no, but of course you do. Like you started first, like, you know, you get the diploma, you're finished with the diploma, you're first self-employed, and you go like, I'm gonna teach the world, and then nobody calls and nobody rings and nobody comes, and you go like, well, maybe this wasn't the right choice. Of course you do. Yeah, that's part of that was part of what it was. Like, that's, of course it is. It's kind of like that's something people go through, and at the time there was a lot less. I'm not saying the good old days or the bad old days or whatever. At the time, there was a lot less kind of support structures around people in coaching or in whatever. You know, I remember the first time I got my website, I got a website developed, and the website developer going like, "You're a what now?"
Yeah. It's interesting actually, because considering because like even now as myself as a, I qualified as sort of like in 2019, but what's interesting as well though is like I actually remember coming across the term properly. I think I'd known about the term coaching for a while, but I remember going would have been back in 2007 or 8, I think it was. I was, as part of the part of my role within the banking world, I was going on a management course, whatever, 3-day management course, team leading stuff. And there was one of the invigilators or one of the instructors on this course. He was a master life coach. And I was like, I was taken aback. I was like, what's that? I've kind of heard of this. And I remember at the time I was thinking about it and I read about it. And it's only now through reflection. And I didn't do anything about it. That was 2007, 8. I would have been, 26, 27 at the time. And I had these, what you now know are limiting beliefs or sort of things you say to yourself. I'm the classic of, I was like, well, who's going to listen to a 26-year-old life coach type things? So it's kind of when you did it 5 years earlier again, when, with coaching is still just about coming into ourselves in Ireland and in the UK, it's still kind of a undersurface thing. So I'm interested, considering you've been doing 15 years, how did you get through that initial sort of, I'm a life coach, and convince people this is a real thing?
This is going to sound really cliche, James, right? But at the time, it was literally day by day.
Yeah.
And learn from your experience on a daily basis. And not being afraid to try stuff.
Yeah.
Not being afraid to go like, you know what, I'll try BNI and see if it works for me as a networking, and will I get business from that? Or I'll try the chamber, or I'll try public speaking, or I'll try harassing the local newspaper until they give me a page 2 article, or I'll try marketing, doing it myself, or I'll try develop a website myself, and that didn't work out. Or I try, and it's literally not being afraid. Do you know what? In hindsight, it's not being afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. And nothing disastrous happened, right? By trying these things. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. If they didn't work, you tried something else. It's like trying a new hobby, right? You try cycling and then you go like, no, not for me. And you sell the bike, and then you try golf and you go like, Jesus, this is boring. So you sell the golf clubs, and then you buy a pair of runners and you go for your first run and you go like, Jesus, this is fun. Did you fail at cycling and golf? No, you found running to be something you enjoyed, right? It's kind of, that process was kind of the process that you developed your small business in at the time. So it was not immediately finding a marketing guru or finding someone to develop sales strategies for you or whatever. Just like feeling your way around about how is this going to work, and not be afraid to fail and don't panic.
Yeah, I like that. And I love you could say it's initially it was like, oh, don't be afraid to try, but it really is, don't be afraid to fail. That's the whole thing of it. And try a different thing. What you brought it on in a great way there, because I was going to ask you about anyway, is in sense you found one of the things you found is running. And I found sort of into running and endurance sports myself. And there's a couple of questions I want to ask you about that. But because the first one, as you said there, was if you've got a hobby or something, is to find something you really enjoy. And what I found, I did a few years ago, like personal training, and I used to take people out on running clubs and things like that. And you get so many people who go, oh, I'll come out, but I hate running. And I used to think, why would you go running then? Why? It's almost as if it's like punishment for themselves. It's like, you don't have to, there's so many things you could do to stay fit and healthy. Why not find something that you really love? So that's my first thing on it. But you did find running, and I'm pretty sure, am I right saying you're part of the 100 Club?
Yes, correct.
So what was it about running to you that sort of grabbed you?
I don't know. It was like, it was always there. I was there when I was a teenager, right?
Yep.
I was in a kind of a private Christian Brothers school, but that's in Belgium. But they had a running track in the college, right? So I was running there since I was 8 or 9 or whatever, and it was always great fun. And I remember I then joined the local soccer club, football, right? We don't call it soccer in Belgium. The local football club. And then when I started playing football, and I started getting my place in the first 11, in the local team, and then whatever. And I used to run to training, do the soccer training, and run home, right? It's kind of like, it was always there somehow. And I used to win loads of medals when I was younger. I was gold, silver, bronze medals at local championships and whatever. But then soccer took over. So it was always kind of there in the background. And then even when I moved to Ireland, then I started playing junior soccer in Limerick. And when I was getting in my 30s, I'd still run to training, do the training, and run home, and they'd all be looking at me going, "Who's this idiot?" Right? So then when I finished playing soccer, and I was told that you're not going to make 50, I said, "Oh, I need to get fit again." So when I was in X Division, we were doing charity events for Barrettstown. Have you heard of Barrettstown?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and we went to Barrettstown for a couple of meetings, etc. And when I was there one day, I said, like, "Oh, what fundraising events do you do?" And they said, like, "Oh, we're still looking for people to do Dublin Marathon." And I went, like, "Okay, I'll do that then." Right. So I had 6 months to train. I'm trying to think back what year that was. 2008.
Okay.
So that was after my coaching diploma and all that. 2008, I ran Dublin Marathon. I trained for it. I trained properly for it. Followed the 𝙒𝙤𝙪𝙣𝙩 tables online. You probably heard of those. Yeah. So did that diligently. And, ran the Dublin Marathon something like 4 hours and a couple of minutes or whatever, and couldn't walk for a week afterwards. And promised I loved running, but I wouldn't do a marathon again.
Okay.
Because that was way too much pain afterwards. It was literally not getting up and down stairs for a week. It was literally horrible. Getting out of the car, because I was living in Limerick, and my dear lovely wife Maura drove us home from Dublin to Limerick, and I couldn't get out of the car for 5 minutes when we arrived in Limerick. Anyway, so it was painful. So I said no, but I enjoyed running, so I kept running, but I would never do that again. Was it 2009? I did the Connemara half marathon, because I thought maybe half marathon is my distance. And I really enjoyed that, even though that's a tough course. I did the Connemara half marathon from Leenane to Man Cross. And then they teased me back the next year. I should come try do the full. The first half is really flat, right? So, do you know what? I said, there's not a lot of people that do two. So I did the second one. And then my brother-in-law is in the Dublin committee, the organization committee of Dublin Marathon. He said, "Well, why don't you come back and do us for the second time?" And that's kind of slowly how it started. There was 3, and I did a 4th one. And then when I'd done about 6 or 7, I heard of Marathon Club Ireland. You heard of them? So it's a club for marathon runners. It's an official athletics club affiliated to Athletics Ireland, etc. And they give medals if you go to 25, 50, or 75 marathons, and then they give you join the 100 club if you've done 100 rectified, fully, result marathons. And I went like, no, it's just nice to have another bunch of people to run with, etc. But then you run your 10th, and you go like, 25 isn't that far away. Right? And then you start doing 4 in 1 year. Just to speed it up. And there was a stage, though, during that process of getting to 25 and from 25 to 50, where it became a little bit less fun.
For sure.
Because it was now about getting somewhere.
That's
and getting to a milestone. And getting there. And that was like, okay, how many marathons am I going to do this year? And which ones can I fit in where? Until one day I stood at the start line of a Dublin marathon, my 3rd or 4th time doing Dublin, and my sports watch, the wrist wrap, broke just before I started. Before the start of the marathon. There was a few expletives and a few were I put it in the back pocket. There was a back pocket in my I said, I'll look at it from time to time, and I checked the times on the thing. I didn't look at the time once. And I ran a PB. And something clicked in my head going like, maybe this running rack is not meant to be. I'm not an elite athlete. I'm not Kenyan. I'm not like chasing a 2-hour marathon. I'm like whatever. So it became more of a social scene and something I enjoyed doing. Which led to, and I can't remember, was it 2016 or 17, without actually planning, without doing anything that I thought was extraordinary, running 43 marathons in one calendar year. Right?
Wow.
It's not 32 in 32 days.
No. Yeah. We'll still leave that to Jerry.
But it was 43 in 1 year, and that was without forcing it. And that led me to join then the what you call the 100 Club.
100. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really, because for people who aren't runners, what we're talking about sounds absolutely ludicrous and crazy. And then even for some people who are runners, it may sound ludicrous and crazy. But the thing that I think the biggest thing from that I'm hearing from there is, though, and I've fallen into the trap myself, is like, you can sometimes forget why you started something and get caught up in the data, get all caught up. Now, it's not to say that the data and the information isn't important, but if that's all you see, then you're kind of like, you forget to sort of just remember why you did it in the first place. Because I was previously, before I got into running, when I was more in college and in school, I was more team sports. I would have been done every team sport that you put me on in a football pitch, you put me in a rugby pitch, you put me in a basketball court. I'd be okay with all of them. I could play them all, and it was fun team sports. Until I got to uni, I couldn't deal with, I was playing basketball uni, and after that, I couldn't deal with any sort of team sports, because sort of 10, 15 uni lads who all thought they were Jordan and we were in the bottom league. I was like, no, I'm done with the egos in this. I wanted to do an individual and got into running. But you can get lost in that moment of taking it almost too seriously, and you forget the reason. It was just the whole thing of just being out there and enjoying the run. And it's when you kind of remind yourself in that, it's kind of freeing again. So I think that's the really sort of important lesson. And I think, do you think, this is maybe an obvious question, but do you think your sort of experiences in running has then reflected into your business?
100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It's like what I wrote in the blog actually this morning. It was like, I heard this from someone else. It wasn't me, but said, like, if you know that the point of running is running itself, not the finish line.
Yeah.
If running is all about the finish line, then find a short race.
Yeah.
Run the 100 meters, right? Because it'll be over really quickly, right?
Yeah.
If that's the point, then that's it. No, it's the act of running and the freedom it gives you, and it's meditative to me. The amount of times that when I'm out for a run, I forget actually how far I am, or where I am, or how far I've gone, or just keep running as long as the body feels like it. And there's no like I'm going to run for an hour. There's like I'm going for a run.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm home 20 minutes later because my body says not today, buddy. And sometimes you come home 3 hours later because you felt great, right?
Yeah.
Just the way it is. So it's the same with other things. If the point of dancing was to arrive at a certain spot on the floor, the dance would be one step.
Yep.
Right. If the point of a musical of a song would be to arrive at a single note, the song would be one note long. Right? It's kind of the same for life or for business. Like if the point is to arrive somewhere, what do you do when you get there? So I've always, from the running, learned to set really clear intentions about what I want to do, rather than goals and targets.
Yeah. And when you no, it's really interesting, because it can sometimes, and this is what I find when I read and when I take information, there's so much could seem as contradictory, or what one person does is different to another. And I like that. I even like the word intention. It does sort of really sort of, gives me a different sort of thought or feeling, that just even the word. So what do you mean when you say intention? Because I find that question interesting as well.
I run when I feel like it, for as long as I feel like, as often as I feel like. That's an intention.
Yeah.
And whatever that means, that means. That means if I'm entered for a race and I've paid my entry, and my body and everything's telling me, like, not this Saturday, Patrick. It's not to panic, not to go, just do something else. Yeah. And then some days that means you've not booked a race, but you feel like it. You go online, because there's literally marathons every weekend in Ireland, nearly, right? Yeah. Nearly every weekend, right? So, and you go online, you go like, especially the smaller ones, like East Antrim Marathon Series, East of Ireland Marathon Series, Marathon Club Ireland Series, like there are like 40 or 50 people at a start line somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
They bring their own food and drinks. They just run a marathon. It's fully timed. It's fully insured. But like, so if you feel like it, you can literally go online and go like, I'm going to book a marathon in Lilliput because there's one on.
Yeah.
You know, Lilliput is near you
Yeah.
there.
Down the road. Yeah.
Yeah. So Lilliput, there's always there's regularly marathons on in Lilliput, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go up to Lilliput, run a marathon, go home.
Yeah.
And that's kind of,
yeah, because it's kind of, because I think, and how it relates to other things in sort of whether people be persons to someone, the career, business, whatever it is, as you say, it's trying to bring it back to, as you say, the intention of doing it versus the sort of, oh, I'm just doing it to check boxes. You know, moving away from that. Are you just doing it to check a load of boxes so you can look back at them, or what's the sort of purpose of what you're doing, or that intention for that work that you're trying to do in that day? So it's when it's not related to running for something else, for example.
yeah. So if I say my intention is to check out every day, what can I do today to make this world a better, more intentional place to be for others? Then today that can mean that I do marketing for my business.
Yeah.
But it's not done because I have to do it or someone told me to do it. It's because I have that intention of reaching more people. And a good way to reach more people is to do marketing, right?
Yeah.
So today I'll do marketing. Now tomorrow I might do something completely different. But it's like, if is what I'm doing today, at the end of the week, I might look back and go like, well, did I actually do this week things towards my intentions? Or should I revisit them, right? And see, because like it seems like I'm doing other stuff now. So, and it's that constant referring back to what your intentions are. And if they're really clear intentions, then it is my experience and that of clients I've worked with, whether that's in business or in life or in sports or in work or career, is that people achieve things beyond what they could have targeted for themselves.
Yeah.
So that you actually, if you would have set targets for yourself, even if they were big, hairy, audacious goals like people talk about, or like clear goals to yourself, that people often achieve beyond that because the goal itself is self-limiting.
Yeah.
Right. Often, not always, but it can be, because if I were to ask you, what do you think you can achieve? You're not going to go beyond what you think you can achieve.
Yeah.
And it's only you think that's what you can achieve. That's not necessarily the truth.
Yeah.
A good example was in League of Ireland last year when Treaty United were assembled in 3 weeks. They got given their license. A new football club in Limerick were giving a license, and in 3 weeks to find 23 players who mostly came from junior ranks and whatever. And when Tommy Barrett, who's the manager there, still this season as well, was asked by a journalist, and it's not going to be verbatim, but that's what he was asked, would 20 points be a good result for a team that was assembled in 3 weeks over your first season? And he said, why would I limit my club to 20 points? And he said, but that would be a great result. And this is like, why would I do that if instead I can work with them on a daily basis to see what we can do today to bring the best out of ourselves and move on from today to tomorrow.
Yeah.
They finished up with 43 points and a playoff spot in their first season, right?
Yeah.
So, because if he had agreed that would have been a good target, would they have had 43 points at the end of the season? Right? That's my question.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's a really interesting way of seeing sort of that whole idea of targets or goals. Are you almost creating a self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense of that you say that's all you could hope to achieve, versus in a sense of, you say, taking it, I say, a day by day, moment by moment, and putting everything in. Because I think and I'm guilty of this myself, because any sort of, if you go to a lot of seminars or events and stuff, it's one of those things that always comes up. Goals is kind of like this big sort of traffic light there, and if we all going to do it. But I think it's also, you have to, you can, whether they work or don't work, the intention piece is probably lacking in a lot of what we do. And maybe it's something we definitely need to take a more active role in.
I'm not saying, by the way, at any moment that goals don't play a role,
Yeah.
That goals are not good for people who are starting up in business or
Yeah.
starting up and running, that you set an initial short-term target for yourself. But it is my personal belief that having real strong and clear intentions can get you way further than just setting goals for yourself. And that is that's just a personal belief, James.
No, absolutely. And I think it's a really powerful one, because I think it's by coupling the two together, you're going to have more chance. And I think it's also then, I think if you start to sort of use those intentions, it's not being afraid to, if you do have those goals and targets, to push them again. And push them again, and say, what is that for full potential that you potentially could get to?
So when you get to the point of like setting clear intentions, you can then make plans based on those intentions. The plan for me, like I have a new program I'm launching, which is a holistic business coaching program, which is like taking business owners, entrepreneurs, and social entrepreneurs, C-suite executives, senior management people through a whole program: mind, body, soul, work, career, business, finance, the whole lot, right? Through 8 coaching sessions. So obviously, if I have a program like that, I'm planning on how I can roll that out. And what there isn't is an attachment to the outcome of how many I'm going to sell.
Getcha. Yeah.
I do every day, to the best of my ability, what I think will help me into the direction of that intention.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I know, I love that. This is a question that I always find interesting to ask people is, and I know you have the one that you said, your sort of your quote and the plaque you have on the wall. Do you have any other sort of, I would use quotes or use mantras and stuff that I hear from people on different occasions, different situations, barring your own one? Is there any other sort of quotes or sayings that you would use on a daily basis in different situations that help you or move you along?
I remember one that I used actually this week, or I used in a blog post recently, came from the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I'm a nerd that way, right?
Love it.
And it was like, not all those who wander are lost. Right? And that is because I love traveling and I love adventures. Right? I never sleep 7 days in a row in the same bed. That's another one of my intentions. I'll tell you a secret not a lot of people know. At least once a week, I stay somewhere else. I'm in another town meeting other people meeting. It doesn't have to be far. It can be Limerick or Cork or Drogheda or Galway or like whatever.
Yeah.
So because of the radio work I do, I'm two nights a week in Limerick anyway, because I live in Dublin now. But so not all those who wander are lost, which means actually the conscious traveler has no, I've heard this quote, but I can't think of one word now.
Yeah.
He does it. It basically says, he who travels consciously never thinks of arriving anywhere.
Yeah.
It's about to travel.
Yeah. Totally.
I'm not going to use the word journey, but it's about to travel.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's about to travel. It's not about arriving somewhere.
Correct.
So that ties in with J.R.R. Tolkien's quote then, not all those who wander are lost.
I love that. And in a similar way to that, are there any sort of, whether it be people out there that have influenced you or continue to influence you, whether it be sort of people in either the public eye or other colleagues or anything that you sort of are aspiring to be or inspire you? Is there any people out there that influence you in that way?
You know, every single person I meet, and I mean this sincerely, every single person I meet knows more than me. So I'm inspired by everybody I meet.
Love it.
And I kind of used to, and this is the reason I'm answering this. I'm just justifying it to a certain extent. I shouldn't, but like, anyway, here goes. I used to look up to people. And usually they were people I would never have a conversation with. Never have a chance to, I could go meet them in a meet and greet, but then I'll have to pay a VIP entry or whatever, that kind of thing. Like, but there were people I wouldn't. There is people who inspire me, but I often get inspired by clients.
Yeah.
I often get inspired by people who are absolutely struggling. And when they tell me their story, they go like, what? Whoa, I don't know if I would be sitting here if I went through what you just went through.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And yes, there is people who inspire me as well that are in the public eye. Like, I don't know if recently you saw the interview from Jack Kavanagh with Tommy Tiernan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that inspires you. Obviously,
Yeah.
these people inspire you, but I
Yeah.
get equally inspired by a client
Yeah.
who has gone through a certain situation that, like,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know, you
I
go,
love that.
oh,
Yeah, because and a reason the way I love that question. I love that answer you say, because it's, I think as well there's to me there was this sort of a personal experience of sense of, maybe it's from the corporate world or maybe just me in general, but we can get this, whether it's as I've heard it from someone else or as myself, but it's like almost like a pedestal complex that you can, and that hierarchical system that you kind of think, oh, they must be up here,
yeah,
and so I must be down. It's, but you immediately put yourself on a lower
yeah,
level. You kind of think, oh, well, I'm not, couldn't be
yeah,
them, and so you're immediately doing yourself a
mm,
disservice. Whereas you
mm,
kind of like, as you take it more of an inspiration or as a motive, or
mhm,
just even that appreciation
mhm,
versus, oh, they're better than me,
yeah,
and just kind of at a human level, that
mhm,
thing. So I think what you say, absolutely. I think even just, for me, it's just that thing is, you said there, just conversations with people can inspire you, no matter where what
yeah.
they do, where they're from, and who they are.
Who was it said comparison is the thief of joy? I can't remember whose quote that was,
I, I can't
but
remember, but I know the one as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So because that we have that in running a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Completely.
people go
Yeah.
like, how many marathons are you at now, Patrick? Is it
I know.
124? Jesus, 124
Yeah.
marathons. Like, and I've only done 2 halves. And they go like, what do you mean you only have done
I
two
know.
halves? If
Yeah.
you've done 2 halves, you've probably done more than 97% of the people of this country, right? And I
Absolutely.
could go, well, there's a lad here living in Rathcoole, which is the next village up from me, Dave Brady.
Yeah.
And Dave is coming up or has gone past his 1,000 marathon. So
Yeah.
compared to him, I'm a
Yeah.
nobody, right? So where do you end
Oh,
up with?
absolutely. And that, yes, you're totally right in the sense of that comparison. I think for me as well, though, once you go into that sort of world in sense of whether it be, I think of people who are in those communities, whether it be into sort of running communities, triathlons, people may who go into sort of like a CrossFit thing, those sorts of games, those sort of mass participation events that you engage in the culture. I can't speak of some of the other ones, but when I found into running is, once you actually get into it, the community is like, whether you've done 1, 2, 100, the community is the community, and you're there. And it's whether you're, going for a PB that's 2:30, or whether you're just trying to get rid to your first one in 7 hours, you're part of it. And there isn't that judgment from my experience. It's just that you're just there.
Especially, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, it's
And
that kind of, and that's, and you can actually find that in business as well.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I, as a solopreneur, as someone who works for themselves, I've come in contact with people who say like, who run 3 businesses, who have 300-400 staff under them, and who then come sit in front of me and break down crying because something's messed up in their life and they need help with it. So if you start putting people on pedestals because of numbers,
yeah,
numbers are infinite, right? Once you start chasing numbers, you're always going to lose because numbers are infinite.
yeah, yeah. No, I love that.
So,
Yeah, no, it's so fascinating, and I love it, the way that you put it across. It's been great to talk to you, Patrick. I have one more question for you, which is,
okay,
what's important for your future?
that's a hard one to answer. So that
Mm,
means it's a good question. What's important for my future? To not attach. I don't actually know how to answer this, to be honest with you,
yeah.
because I'm so conditioned myself to live in the present.
Well, and I think that's
I'm actually finding it really hard to answer that, because
sure.
I'm so conditioned to live in the present and to not be attached to outcomes that
Yeah.
I actually relatively matters little.
And that's what's so great about this thing. It's like the fact that that's not even a. It's not even as, when I put it to you in a sense, it's not even a worry or concern then for you.
No,
Love it. Yeah.
not whatsoever.
Yeah.
Not whatsoever.
I love it.
No.
I
And
know. I think
it's disconcerting. A lot of people find this
yeah,
disconcerting.
yeah, for sure. What I think you would, just to add on to that, because I think we could be again sort of the idea of conditioned in some ways, or thinking if you delve into this kind of world, into personal development, personal well-being, coaching, the whole thing is like, oh no, you have to have all these things to strive for and go for and stuff. And it's we want people to move forward, but maybe it is more about, well, what is the now?
It's the only
Yeah.
moment ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
What you're doing tomorrow will be now tomorrow, right? So.
Yeah, I know, it's brilliant. It's been fantastic to talk to you, Patrick. Before we go, I'd love to, make sure people know where they can find you and support you. So I will make sure it's obviously shared in any of the notes and anything that associated with the podcast. But if you'd like to call out now where people can find you online, you can do it now. It'd be great.
Yeah, I have a really funny name. So it's Mercie, Mercie. I'm the only one with that name. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook under that name. So if you look me up on that, my website is 𝙒𝙤𝙪𝙣𝙩. It's a blog for the moment because I actually bought practitioner.com.ie. So I'm developing a new website on that. And people ask me for when, and I go like, when it's ready. You know, that kind of way. But it's 𝙒𝙤𝙪𝙣𝙩 is my website. So people want to read the blog that I write there on a weekly basis, they can do that. So thank you for asking, James.
That's brilliant. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Patrick, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to What's Important to You. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and share. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Again, you can follow me at 𝙤𝙤𝙪𝙣 on Facebook and Instagram. Connect with me on LinkedIn or find out more about me on 𝙤𝙤𝙪𝙣.com.